9 o'clock. Nobody's on yet. This is a very interesting chapter to end on for the school year. It's bodily discharges. So, aren't we all excited? So, 12 to 15 at this chiasm, and then 15 itself is a chiasm. I think a literary, what would we call that? Literary style, or?
Peak.
Yeah, peak. I mean, that's really what it's a. So, I forget what it is, but 12. Uh, 15, 13. Oh, that's not right. 15, A, B, C, C1, B1, A1. All right, check my sound. All right. Looks like we got a light on. Should be good. Good morning. Did I say good morning yet? No, officially good morning. Sure feels like spring is in the air. It's finally come. It's kind of fun having a late Easter, or later than average Easter. And yeah. When it comes to this time of year, this is when traditionally pastors from the seminary would be assigned the end of this month. I think I was thinking about when I got my first call, it was so close to Easter, and I don't remember if it was a week or something, but then, sometimes Easter's earlier, but call day is often in the 23rd, 24th, 20, it might even be this week, or maybe it's next week, I'm not certain, but like a church like Clarissa Eagle Bend, they're hoping to get somebody from the seminary. Lots of churches will maybe try calling, and then or they just go right to the seminary. They like grabbing a graduate out of the seminary. So that's sort of going on. And when I started going to seminary, probably for five years before I got there, you could listen to the service on an internet feed, and then I don't even know if they had video when I went through, but you could, at a certain point they did a live stream, like way back then, like 20 years ago, for call night. And so you as a church, if you were getting a vicar, that was like, in St. Louis it was at 4 o'clock, and in the evening it was 6:30 services. And so you'd find out as a congregation if and who you were getting. So it's a unique experience. But anyway, I've been thinking about. I don't think about it as much every year, but this year I have been for some reason. I think it's just Easter was so close to call day and stuff like that. So anyway, that's going on, and so a lot of future pastors are finding out where they're going this week, next week, somewhere in there. So this is our last gathering. We decided that we would meet. This is the last time we're going to meet for a while, till fall. And we've been working on the chiasm, 12 to 15, chapter 15 today. And just so happens that chapter 15 itself is a chiasm in a chiasm. From 12 to 15, it might be better to make it look like this. There's a chiasm in chapter 15. So it's just a literary feature that kind of talks about a topic, talks about another topic, then the topic that was previously talked about, and then it ends with kind of the topic that was originally the first one of the chiasm. So if you really want to know, verses 1 and 2 are the first part. 2b to 15, second part, 16 to 18, the top, sequel, B, coming down, 19 to 24, and then 31 to 33. All right, so bodily fluids. Yay! So I think I'll just address this now. Because let's say you're early in your career as a human being, and I don't know. Let's say you're in Sunday school and you read this chapter. Or let's say you're your age and you read this chapter. It makes a little more sense as you get older, but it's still very weird and not something you would expect if you had just read the Gospel of John the week prior, and then you open Leviticus and you just I'm just going to read Leviticus 15, and so it's bodily discharges, and so you read this, and honestly, even we've talked about this time and time again, that reading Leviticus is, the temple, the tabernacle stuff is just like kind of a lot. So why an emphasis on bodily discharges? And we can be like, well, there's the cleanliness thing, like maybe this is, just important cleanliness thing. But I think, and I can't necessarily prove it, it's not really in the text, but let me ask you this. Where did the Israelites, we know where they're in the wilderness now, but where were they before the wilderness? And who occupies the land that they will go to at some point?
Canaanites.
Huh?
The Canaanites.
Did you, what, say again?
Canaanites.
Yeah. So Canaan. And the Canaanites are from Canaan. And so Egyptian religion has divine priests, I think, or at least they have priests, but they have a divine pharaoh, right?
Yeah.
They're polytheistic. And so that means they have what? Yeah, many gods. And truth be told, I think all the religions are kind of like that around there. And I found I looked up just on a whim. I looked up Moabite religion, and then with it came like Mesopotamia religion, and there was a couple other ones, and I would say they all seem to be poly. But one thing, and so they're in the wilderness, and I don't think it's like I think the Canaanites are around them. I think, I don't know how much they interact with them, but I think they're on the same, if it's a lake, they see them from a distance, maybe. It's kind of my thought. But a couple practices that the Canaanites would do were child sacrifice, and as well as, and just so you know, and you're not surprised by this, the Israelites started doing this from time to time, or at least once I'm aware of. They kind of bought into it. A major mistake they made. But there's also, I forget what it's called, but we'll call it religious prostitution. And, prostitution. Okay, there you can tell it. And so we've heard of prostitution. If we think of anything, we think the street corner. But religious prostitution was, in the building, the sacred place. Okay? So, religious prostitution was you participate you sexually participate in this religion, and that's how good things or advantageous things or things that you want to happen. Like crops grow and rain comes down. And so this was a way to engage the polytheistic, the gods of the religion. And the same thing with child sacrifice was awfully, a means of survival in the minds of the Canaanites. So knowing this, I think, helps prepare us for what we're going to read today. And we'll come back to it. So, in verse 1, any questions? Didn't think so. Verse 1 of chapter 15, the Lord Yahweh spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, "Speak to the people of Israel and say to them, when a man has a discharge from his body, his discharge is unclean." But just a reminder that uncleanness is not like a negative thing. Uncleanness is more just like an ordinary thing. And at one point, it talked about athletes and farmers, but it didn't explain the athletes thing, but it's like the farmer gets dirty, the farmer has to go through a procedure to wash his hands in order to come in the dining room or enter the home. A turkey farmer has to do multiple things now. The shower, the boots, the sign at the driveway, get off my lawn. So we understand this today. The farmer is not like bad because they farm turkeys or any kind of crop, where you get dirty and you have to clean yourself. We still value these people and these occupations, and so it's not. We remind ourselves that it's not like these are bad people who became unclean. Does that make sense? Okay. Speak to the people. Okay, verse 3. And this is the law of his uncleanness for a discharge, whether his body runs with his discharge or his body is blocked up by his discharge. It is his uncleanness. So what discharges are we thinking about? Yeah, I know. It's right on the tip of your tongue. These are not. This is not sexual, or it's not sperm, semen, but this is sicknesses of your sexual and your urinary system. So you have something that's blocking, or you have something that you can't shut off. Like it leaks all the time, and it's a disease or a sickness that's causing this. How am I doing, Rana? Is that how we say it?
I think you're good.
Okay, thanks. All right. So, we will get to the other discharges to come. So what happens is that in verse 4, every bed on which the one with the discharge lies shall be unclean, and everything on which he sits shall be unclean. And everyone who touches his bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until evening. And whoever sits on anything on which the one with the discharge has sat shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until evening. And whoever touches the body of the one with the discharge shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean till evening. And if the one with the discharge spits on someone who is clean, then he shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until evening. And any saddle on which the one with the discharge rides shall be unclean. And whoever touches anything that is under him shall be unclean until evening. And whoever carries such things shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until evening. And anyone whom the one with the discharge touches without having rinsed his hands in water shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. And an earthenware vessel that the one with the discharge touches shall be broken, and every vessel of wood shall be rinsed in water. And when the one with the discharge is cleansed of his discharge, then he shall count for himself 7 days for his cleansing and wash his clothes. And he shall bathe his body in fresh water and shall be clean. And on the 8th day he shall take 2 turtle doves and 2 pigeons and come to the Lord to the entrance of the tent of meeting and give it to the priest. And the priest shall use them, one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. And the priest shall make atonement for him before the Lord for his discharge. All right, so any questions? Cricket.
It's interesting,
Yeah.
about washing and isolation and
Yeah.
all those things. I don't understand the evening part of it because,
I think I can answer that. So we're going to find that some things are going to, for when we get to women, it's going to seem unfair because the women, or I should say female discharges require more time. And I'm not just going to give you the answer because you might leave. And so, yeah, but the evening, I think the evening is just basically, there is a process, a means. There isn't the why, like we don't even know why, in some senses, the why of how, this is more just, this is what you do in this circumstance. Regarding this, we'll say Canaanite ritual and religion, it's upholding, so it's, on one sense it's practical. It's like we want to encourage the people to be clean, but it's dealing with things that are, so for a man, his sexual organ is also his urinary organ. Is it an organ? Anyway, that can be used by the Canaanites. And so what I'm trying to say is that I think God is saying, keep this far away from your understanding of a right relationship with me. And not only that, make sure we're clean around here. Keep it clean. All right. The interesting thing, this is a side note, if it's a pot, you destroy it. But do you see what it said if it's wood? Yeah, why can you just rinse it and not destroy it? Well, this is just a side note. The wood is not readily available. Wood has more value. Wood I think it required more work to make. So what I read is that I think if you read this then, you'd say, if I'm even close to being unclean, we ain't touching the wood objects, because those are the nicest. I think the pottery was more the more common, so the wood vessel was more like the fine silverware. The pottery is the everyday. And that's a little going too far with it, but it's just kind of interesting because a lot of times we think wood's available because that's where we live, where wood is available. It's just like we picture Jesus being born in a wood barn with European, architectural components, but the reality is there's probably far more stone in his home that he was born in. Second to that, Jesus is a tecton. We think of Jesus as a carpenter, so we picture him with his crosscut saw and his hammer. Well, I guess he'd have a hammer, but the reality is that most tectons in the ancient Near East, if there wasn't much wood, what were they? What would we call them today?
Masons.
Yeah, stoneworkers, really. So, anyway, it's just a fun little rabbit hole to go down. Verse 16, right? Okay, so now we're at the second step in the chiasm of chapter 15. When the one with the discharge is, if a man has an emission of semen, he shall bathe his whole body in water and be unclean until evening. And every garment and every skin on which the semen comes shall be washed with water and be unclean until evening. And if a man lies with a woman and has an emission of semen, both of them shall bathe themselves in water and be unclean till evening. Now, we move into a woman's discharge. When a woman has a discharge, and the discharge in her body is blood, and that's the difference. Blood is, lost blood was so defiling in the ancient Near East, and the importance of blood in the sacrificial. So blood just has a different sensitivity amongst the people. So a woman has a discharge, and the discharge in her body is blood. She shall be in her menstrual impurity for 7 days, and whoever touches her shall be unclean until evening. And so it's not forbidding anyone to be around her. She's not isolated. Again, uncleanness is not necessarily like wrong. It's not wrong. This is just this is how it is. But one of the things I don't know, it's hard to know what to think about this, but it allowed for women during their menstrual cycle to actually have a reason to back away from maybe the duties of the household and child rearing, too, recognizing what was going on inside of them. So in a way, it could be like God is actually giving women the break that they need on a monthly basis going through this. It's not the easiest thing for me to try to talk about when I've never menstruated. Nor do I want to ask, what do you guys think? So, and everything on which she lies in, where am I at, 20? And everything on which she lies during her menstrual impurity shall be unclean. Everything also on which she sits shall be unclean. And whoever touches her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until evening. And whoever touches anything on it on which she sits shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until evening. Whether it is the bed or anything on which she sits, when he touches it, it shall be unclean until evening. And if any man lies with her, and her menstrual impurity comes upon him, he shall be unclean 7 days, and every bed on which he lies shall be unclean. Verse 25, if a woman has a discharge of blood for many days, so now we're out of the menstruation, but I think more into the dysfunctional blood stuff. If a woman has a discharge of blood for many days, not at the time of her menstrual impurity, or if she has a discharge beyond the time of her impurity, All the days of the discharge she shall continue in uncleanness. And in 7 days of her impurity she shall be unclean. Every bed on which she lies, all the days of her discharge shall be to her as the bed of her impurity. And everything on which she sits shall be unclean, as in the uncleanness of her menstrual impurity. And whoever touches these things shall be unclean, and shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the evening. But if she is cleansed of her discharge, she shall count for herself 7 days, and after that she shall be clean. And on the 8th day she shall take 2 turtle doves, or 2 pigeons, and bring them to the priest, to the entrance of the tent of meeting. And the priest shall use one of the sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering. And the priest shall make atonement for her before the Lord for her unclean discharge. Verse 31. Thus you shall keep the people of Israel separate from their uncleanness, lest they die in their uncleanness by defiling my tabernacle that is in their midst. This is the law for him who has a discharge, and for him who has an emission of semen, becoming unclean thereby. Also for her who is unwell with her menstrual impurity, that is, for anyone, male or female, who has a discharge, and for a man who lies with a woman who is unclean. All right.
So I have a question.
All right, cool.
It might be a little easier. So the woman who touches Jesus' robe
Yeah.
in his period, she shouldn't have been there because she was impure. She shouldn't have been there.
Ooh, nice. That's really cool. And so when we hear this, we hear she's like dirty, like she didn't wash her hands. But that's really interesting. You should look into that. And that's how Leviticus now shapes how you read that text. And I think you're probably right, because we hear uncleanliness and we think, you know, we're all sinners, right? You know, I think it's how we read it. But you're onto something, Sherlock Holmes, and you are, or is it? Who's a female investigator? Yeah, who is the one from the 80s that Madeline is built off of? Or is that Murder She Wrote? What's her name?
That
Jessica. Is that it? Well, anyway, another rabbit hole. That was fun. So back to I think that's just a wonderful insight. So the woman that touches Jesus is making him impure, in a sense, and he makes her. So then the audience, let's say you're a Pharisee and you see this happen, and yeah, I don't know. That sounds really interesting. Let me know what you find out. I think I might even partake of that homework. So, good. Anyone else?
How come it always says be unclean until the evening?
I think that's just another way of saying till the end of the day. I think it's just saying, I don't know why, but I think it's consistent. I think it's clear. Why evening, not morning? Because maybe you don't interact with people through the night. I think it's just saying, a day. Make sure you clean everything up. Yeah, I won't worry about it too much. Yeah. Good question. So just reminding ourselves, really, I think what is going on here is that Yahweh is saying, you are not like them. You don't need to do this kind of stuff. Because you think about the prostitution part of it, with the discharges and stuff like that, but also what is to come from the proper act of using the sexual organs? Children, right? So you see how it kind of like it covers both of these. Like Yahweh upholds children. He wants children. He wants couples to enjoy and be a part of this process and to grow, be fruitful and multiply, and not do this to children and not have these relationships in, weird ways in their holy places. So if the Canaanite, if the Canaanites have a tabernacle, it's different. It has prostitutes there, right? In the Canaanite Holy of Holies. And not so in Leviticus, not so in the in God's tabernacle. Is that clear? So I really think in the big picture, this is what God's trying to do is he's distinguishing the Israelites from the Canaanites especially. So looks like when we come back this fall, it's the Day of Atonement, which is kind of a big deal. That involves the Holy of Holies, and I guess we can kind of talk summary. We wrapped up Exodus. We started plowing through Exodus whenever we started, September, October, and we got here to Leviticus this school year. Any thoughts? Anything you want to add to the discussion?
When we did Genesis, it was very, very interesting. And all the different, like a soap opera, anyway.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, soap opera.
And then we went to Exodus, which was not as good.
Yeah.
Not as interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't going to work in the afternoon.
And
Yeah.
now we get to Leviticus, and it's really different.
Yeah, so like Genesis was like 2:00 soap opera, and Exodus was kind of like the 5:00 news for an adult,
Yeah.
and Leviticus is like the 5:00 news for a kid, right? Like a kid doesn't want to really read or watch the 5:00 news. They don't even want to watch Jeopardy, maybe Wheel of Fortune. And so it's really hard, but like I said, and have said, like, this is the only opportune time to read Leviticus with, guns blazing or whatever. Like we got the momentum of Genesis and Exodus, and man, if you start dragging your feet in Leviticus, just go back to Genesis and get a healthy dose of the dysfunction there, but no, you're absolutely right. I think it's kind of like how many of you drank coffee when you were little? At some point you started drinking coffee, and some of you might enjoy the different flavors of different coffee, or you just like cheap coffee, but or maybe it's wine or beer or something that has different flavors that you can explore and learn about. It's hard. It's hard to figure out like the flavors of a certain liquid that maybe you're interested in. And I think that's what Leviticus is. It's really hard, but you just got to kind of keep wrestling with it and note the differences and make sense of it as best you can. It's not like chocolate milk of Genesis or, lemonade of Exodus. I don't know. All right, that was good. Good insight. Anyone else? We got 25 minutes left of insights. I'm not letting you go early.
I'm glad we're not reading Leviticus alone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like in your own house. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'd never make it.
I agree. And I feel the same way. I mean, you know, it'd be hard for me to read Leviticus in my office, and, you know, you'd have to be really disciplined, I think, and focused. Yeah. Anybody have a favorite moment in Exodus, Leviticus, or all of Bible study? Now's the time to share. Well, I will go get the graduation robes. We'll have a little graduation ceremony. All right. Well, let us close with prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you for a journey from Exodus to Leviticus, and we thank you for the opportunity to read together. Truth be told, this is a hard book to read. And so I ask that you continue to give us, students of your word, wisdom, patience, endurance, an open mind, the capacity to have aha moments and to make sense of things when sometimes it's a real chore to stay with us. So we thank you for the community of believers that can read this together. We ask that you bring us back in late fall or early fall so we can start again. More than that, we still live having celebrated the resurrection of your Son, Jesus, and so we still live in that light, and we do every day. We live in the light of the resurrection, but having just celebrated that, we remember the flowers that come from the ground and all the things of beauty, especially at this time. And the most beautiful thing, and that is the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and the life everlasting. So Lord, bless us this day and always. In your name we pray. Amen.